Hi, Vladimir.
Hello.
Thank you for coming on. I think you are in Erbil now, and everybody in the region and probably in many countries are following, watching Afrin right now. Turkish operation began yesterday on Saturday. Can you tell us so far what has been going on in Afrin?
Yeah, well, yesterday there were a lot of Turkish airstrikes. So there were some civilians that were killed and also injured. And it seems that today the real ground operation has started. There were also some attempts. The Kurds claimed that Turkish army and the rebels they tried to enter from the border of Afrin in Bilbil, in the village of Bilbil. But it seems now that there's a real ground operation going on, which is also sort of officially announced by the Turkish government, because they think recently the prime minister said that they want to establish a 30 kilometers corridor in this area. So yeah, this is a complete different environment, and also for a lot of Kurds here in Iraq, where I'm currently at, it reminds them of what happened in Kirkuk. That nobody's helping them, and that they have to fight against Turkey in this case. And there's still Turkish airstrikes now, and there's also a lot of propaganda going on from both sides. And the problem, I think, one of the interesting things in this operation is that I doubt there's any foreign journalists inside Afrin, but I doubt there's also any foreign journalists, for instance, on the border of Afrin in Turkey itself, because for especially the Kurds of Rojava, they compare it to the Battle of Kobani, because PYD officials and YPG officials say they're going to do the same resistance as in Kobani. But you know that the situation in Turkey itself now completely changed because during Kobani, there were so many foreign reporters covering Kobani on the other side of the border, and they were also allowed to go inside Kobani. And also the situation inside Turkey was very different, as you know, than now.
Very different Turkey comparing the 2014, definitely. So it looks like Turkey more or less got the support of the world. Europe, US seems to be quiet. They didn't want this to happen, but they're not making a lot of noise. Your country is not making much noise. Russia more or less appears to be giving a green light. What do you say?
Yeah, well, the Americans they have spoken out against such an operation recently, but they were very hesitant to talk about the operation, especially when Turkey first started talking about the possibility of attacking Afrin. But I think the most crucial actor in this factor or in this operation is actually Russia, because there's Kurdish officials claim that Russians told the Kurds that if you don't hand over Afrin to Assad government, then we're going to allow the Turks to attack, and the Kurds rejected that. So you see now actually, especially by the YPG in their latest statement, that they actually blame Russia for the Turkish attack, because they say this attack couldn't have happened without the Russian approval. And the Russian in public, they're at least saying, no, it's not a good idea for Turkey to attack. So I think this is like important because Afrin is part of sort of the Russian influence zone. It was never an American zone. And the situation, of course, we have to see what happens in Afrin. But for instance, if the Turks will really also attack Manbij, then we have to see the U.S. position, because that's an area where they have troops and not the Russians. The Russian actually also had some forces there. But from Manbij, you could say the American influence zone start.
That was the question I was going to ask. President Erdogan saying that the next target will be Manbij. That means they're going to put Turkish forces against Americans directly. Do you think either side able to make a U-turn? Somebody is going to have to cave on Manbij. Otherwise, Turks and Americans are going to clash.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to say what's going to happen because it also depends much on Afrin. For instance, if Afrin is going to be a long bloody battle for the Turks, which the YPG says they can do this, they say they're going to resist. But of course now also the Turkish army gets involved. It's not just some Syrian rebels. But if they do gonna fight in Manbij, then the situation gonna be much different because then what's America gonna do? They have to choose between the Kurds and Turkey, which is a NATO ally. So that's why I think the Americans are really now in a tight position, and I think this is exactly what Erdogan wants. He wants to put them under pressure, and that's why he takes this kind of calculated risks. But I mean, yeah, it's difficult to say what's gonna exactly happen.
Americans do not have any other ally, right? They have to have Syrian Kurds to be able to stay in Syria. They already stated that they are going to stay in Syria for a long time. And if they sell out, if they appear to be selling out Syrian Kurds, then they cannot stay with Syrian Kurds either. So I don't know if in this situation, Syrian Kurds seems to be indispensable ally rather than Turks.
Yeah, because Afrin is of course very different because Russia they're allied actually to the Syrian government, not to the Kurds to that much extent. So there they actually try to put this in an advantage position of the Syrian government. But in Manbij, of course, it's very different because the Americans have been working with the Kurds since the Battle of Kobani against ISIS, and basically what hurt the credibility, of course, of the Americans if they allow the Turks just to walk into Rojava and northern Syria. So I think for America it's going to be very difficult, but until now we don't see a very big message or something from America yet, because I think there's a lot of behind the door talks and calls between the different between the Russians and the Turks and between the Americans and the Turks. So we have to really see what's going to happen. But somehow I'm also a bit surprised that Turkey first attacks Afrin, because Afrin is much more, it's really, really Kurdish. So all these arguments that Turkey is making about freeing Afrin from PYD and stuff, this is not going to really work out. Well, if they, for instance, would have attacked Manbij, they could have still said, okay, Manbij is originally not a Kurdish town. They would have some more arguments to make because there's other, I mean, Manbij is much more ethnically diverse than, for instance, Afrin. But yeah.
My final question. So what Turkey wants in Afrin right now? They want to take the Afrin canton completely and let Syrian Arab FSA forces to run it. Is this the goal?
Well, I'm not sure. Like in the beginning, a lot of analysts were saying that Turkey was just going to take the surroundings of Afrin to completely blockade it. But now I'm not sure, because it seems that they're really attacking Afrin from several fronts at the same time. So if you look on the map, it looks that they're attacking them from several fronts, and it's not really anymore just focused on the areas around Afrin. Yeah. But if they're going to, I don't know if they're going to do it. It's basically Turkish army, I think, controlling Afrin if they, of course, succeed. Because I think this is not a battle that's going to be over very fast. So yeah, it's going to look like the Turkish plan is like Euphrates Shield, to have some local Syrian groups as a legit, like to give some legitimacy. But in the end, it's all like a Turkish-run operation. So also it's going to look bad somehow, I think, for Assad if this succeeds, because basically Turkey takes more land, and I think it's easier for Assad to have the Kurds in Afrin. But because the Kurds didn't want to give up to Russia, I think that's why also for Assad maybe it's not. It plays all the actors against each other, and he can just sit, while taking Idlib, and all the focus will also be gone from Idlib. Like nobody talks now about Idlib anymore. So at some point it could also be good for Assad, actually.
Thank you so much for joining in, and stay safe, and talk to you soon in another AhvalTV video program.
You're welcome.